I died on my 30th birthday from relentless organ failure. The cold machine let out one final, long beep, pronouncing this shell of a body drained of its luck and depleted of all life officially wrecked. My soul floated up, light as a wisp of unnoticed smoke, and watched the fake mourners around my hospital bed with cold indifference. My best friend, Sarah, was sobbing her eyes out in the arms of my fiancé, Caleb. "Chloe," she wept, "it's just so tragic." Her voice was choked with emotion, but her hand was clutching the diamond ring I'd given her. She would want us to live on for her, to be happy. Caleb held her tight, his eyes full of anguish. His voice was so gentle it could melt butter. "Don't cry. You have to think about the baby. Chloe's spirit is watching, and she wouldn't want to see you like this." I stared down at the two of them. Scumbags. Of course, with me dead, they could finally be together without any guilt, inherit my entire estate, and use my money to throw their wedding of the century and live the life everyone dreams of. Just then, an old man in a long robe appeared beside me. He seemed to see me. He sighed and shook his head. A shame. Born with a golden destiny. A fate seen once in a century, only to have it stolen and replaced with a cursed star. A jolt went through me, shaking my very soul. The old man's voice sounded like an echo from ancient times. 12 years ago, on your 18th birthday, your friend swapped your wishing charm before you made your wish. The wish you were meant to make a brilliant career became hers. And her wish, a curse of getting what she deserved, fell upon you. A 12-year cycle has passed. Your luck has been completely siphoned away by her. It's no wonder your flame has burned out. So that was it. The reason my life started so smoothly and ended in ruins. Why she went from a nobody to a rising star, it was all because of that one devious switch. All my talent, my opportunities, my wealth, and even my health had been used to feed her success. Hate burned through my soul like a toxic fire. Why her? Just as that all-consuming resentment was about to tear me apart, everything went black. I felt a powerful, yanking force. "Chloe, what are you spacing out for? Make a wish." Sarah's sweet voice rang in my ear like a poison-tipped dagger. I snapped my eyes open. The blinding sunlight and the loud music from the pool party made me dizzy. I was surrounded by faces that were both familiar, and yet strangely young. Streamers and balloons danced in the wind. I looked down at myself, dressed in a white party dress, my skin smooth, my hands full of youthful energy. I was back. Back 12 years ago, at my own 18th birthday party. And right in front of me was that infamous wishing fountain. The water shimmered in the sun, the bottom littered with coins tossed by guests for good luck. They glittered like countless mocking eyes. Sarah was holding my arm affectionately. With her other hand, she pressed a shiny coin and a folded piece of paper into my palm, her smile radiating pure innocence. "Hurry, everyone's waiting for the birthday girl to make her wish. I already wrote it for you. May Chloe have a brilliant career." How's that for a best friend? I looked at her innocent, harmless face as scenes from my past life flooded my mind. How she'd sympathized with me for being plagiarized while submitting my design drafts as her own, how she'd comforted me after a breakup. While wearing a dress I bought her to go on a date with Caleb, how she'd fed me soup when I was gravely ill while calculating my inheritance. 12 years of hatred now condensed into a cold smile on my lips. Wow. You really are the best friend a girl could ask for. I took the coin and the paper. They felt cold and real in my hand. Right in front of her, I slowly unfolded the wish. Sure enough, written in her neat handwriting were the words, "May Chloe have a brilliant career." Then, in a moment no one noticed, I scraped my fingernail across the name Chloe before quickly folding it back up. In my last life, this was the note she swapped for one that said, "May Sarah have a brilliant career." Once it hit the water, my fate was sealed. This time, I wouldn't give her the chance. I turned to her. "Sarah, you always say we share everything, right? Good times and bad. So if this is my good luck, you should get half." Sarah froze for a second, then a flicker of concealed delight crossed her eyes. She thought I meant I'd share my opportunities with her and nodded eagerly. "Of course. We're best friends for life." "Great," I said with a smile, then did something nobody expected. I tore the paper wish cleanly in half. As Sarah stared in shock, I took the half that said, "A brilliant career," and flicked it into the wishing fountain. It fluttered down into the water. Then I looked at her, holding out the other half with my name on it. My smile was gentle. "This half is for you. Hope you get everything you deserve." Sarah's face went white. She never imagined I'd pull a move like this. A torn wish was a broken wish. The magic was gone. Her plan was ruined. But I wasn't done. I pulled another coin from my pocket, one that was warm from my body heat. I clutched it tightly in my palm, closed my eyes, and silently repeated the words in my mind. This time, I wasn't wishing for anyone else. I was wishing for myself. Then, looking at Sarah's face, which was now twisted in shock and rage, I tossed the second coin high into the air. It traced a cold arc, carrying 12 years of my blood, sweat, and tears, and landed with a sharp clink right on the statue in the middle of the fountain, like the chime of destiny. Facing the water, and facing her, I spoke each word with chilling clarity. "This time may you never get back up." As the words left my lips, the noise of the pool party seemed to hit a mute button. Everyone stared at me, shocked, as if they didn't recognize the gentle, kind Chloe they thought they knew. I just met Sarah's venomous gaze with my brightest smile. Game on. The party's atmosphere remained frozen thanks to my shocking wish. People exchanged glances and whispered, their eyes filled with confusion and curiosity. Sarah was the first to snap out of it. Her eyes reddened, and tears welled up perfectly. Her voice trembled with boundless hurt. "Chloe, what's wrong? Did I do something to make you mad? How could you make such a vicious wish?" Her pitiful act immediately won over the crowd. A few girls who were close to her rushed over to comfort her, shooting accusatory looks my way. "Yeah, Chloe, that's taking a joke way too far. Sarah is so good to you. How could you treat her like that?" I watched her masterful performance with cold eyes. In my last life, I'd always caved to her tears and the accusations of others, swallowing every grievance until it cost me my life. Not this time. I ignored her crying and calmly looked away, as if my dramatic gesture had nothing to do with me. Just then, a tall young man in a well-tailored white suit pushed through the crowd toward me. It was Caleb. His handsome face wore the perfect blend of concern and disapproval, like a prince gently chiding a petulant princess. "Chloe, stop it." He came to stand in front of me, his voice low but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "It's your birthday. Don't make a scene." He held out a beautifully wrapped gift box, his tone laced with a sense of superiority that tolerated no refusal. "Happy birthday. I had this limited edition perfume brought in from France for you. I think you'll like it." In my past life, this was the perfume that made me fall for him completely. I thought it was a sign of his unique affection for me, only to find out later that every girl he flirted with received one of his so-called limited editions. I looked at the face I'd been obsessed with for a decade, and all I saw now was hypocrisy and calculation. He wasn't here to save me from the awkward situation. He was here to maintain his perfect boyfriend persona while showing off his wealth and status. I didn't take the box. I just lifted my eyes to meet his, looked past him to Sarah, and asked softly, "Did Sarah help you pick this out? It must have been so much work for her, putting all that thought into my birthday gift." The words hung in the air. Caleb's smile froze, and Sarah's sobbing stopped abruptly. She stared at me in disbelief, a flicker of panic in her eyes for the first time. She had been so careful to keep that a secret. In my last life, I only found out much later by overhearing some gossip. By exposing it now, in public, I was tearing down the carefully constructed facade between them. Caleb's face shifted from pale to red. He probably never imagined that the ever-adoring Chloe, who used to hang on his every word, would humiliate him in such a calm, devastating way. "Chloe, what are you talking about?" he said, frowning, trying to regain control. "This was my idea." Was it? I chuckled lightly, my gaze sweeping over the crowd of curious classmates. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe I'm mistaken. But since your gift is so valuable, I can't possibly accept it. After all, we're not actually in a relationship, are we?" That sentence was like a slap across Caleb's face. He'd been pursuing me for 6 months, and the whole school assumed we were a couple. He enjoyed the power that ambiguity gave him, and he enjoyed my unconditional devotion. He thought all he had to do was crook his finger and I would fall into his arms, grateful, just like last time. He thought wrong. Chloe, you. Caleb's face darkened completely. The gentleness in his eyes vanished, replaced by the fury of a man whose pride had been wounded. I couldn't be bothered to look at him anymore. I turned, took a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray, and walked to the other side of the party, leaving him and Sarah with their wonderfully expressive faces behind me. I could feel countless eyes on me like searchlights, filled with shock, curiosity, and speculation. They were all probably wondering what had gotten into the normally meek as a lamb Chloe. I didn't care. Starting today, they would have to get used to the new Chloe, one who wouldn't be pushed around, who knew how to say no, and who was sharp-tongued and not to be messed with. I sat down on a sofa in the corner, watching Sarah and Caleb from a distance. Sarah was still crying softly while Caleb stood beside her, his face grim, whispering something to her. The effortless intimacy between them looked so ironic now. Soon, Sarah composed herself. She dried her tears, put on her kind, magnanimous smile, and began to mingle with the guests as if she were the host of the party. She would cleverly bring up my odd behavior, blaming it on a bad mood, while subtly flaunting her purely platonic friendship with Caleb. The old me would have been completely fooled by her act, would have even felt guilty and apologized to them both. But now, watching her clumsy performance, I just found it pathetic. I took out my phone and opened a very basic lottery website. It was Saturday, and at 9 p.m., the state lottery would announce the latest winning numbers. I remembered it clearly. In my past life, just 3 days after my birthday, Sarah had ecstatically told me she'd bought a lottery ticket on a whim using my birthday numbers and won the $5 million jackpot. She called me her lucky star. Back then, I was a fool, so happy for her, feeling like her success was partly my own. Now I knew better. It wasn't her luck, it was the good fortune from the wishing fountain that should have been mine. It was the first pot of gold she used to change her destiny. I watched the countdown timer on my phone screen, raised my glass of champagne, and gave a silent toast to Sarah, who was effortlessly charming the crowd across the room. Your first stroke of luck, Sarah? I'm taking it back personally. I left my own birthday party early. Under the strange gazes of the guests, I calmly told my parents I was tired and walked out of the noisy villa alone. The cool night air cleared the champagne haze from my head, leaving me more focused than ever. I didn't go home. I hailed a cab and went straight to the largest lottery ticket retailer in the city. It was 8:10 p.m., 20 minutes before sales closed for the night. I walked into the shop, the air thick with the smell of tobacco and ink. A few regulars were huddled around the results board, fiercely debating the next set of numbers. "Hi, I'd like this ticket," I said, walking straight to the counter and handing the clerk a slip of paper I had prepared. 50 times, please." The middle-aged clerk took the paper, glanced at it, and looked up at me in surprise. 50, kid? That's $100. Back then, $100 was a lot of money for a student. I nodded calmly. Yes, that's the one. Written on the paper were my very familiar birthday numbers, plus one special number I had added. In my last life, Sarah had won the second-place prize of $5 million with just the regular numbers. She had ignored the special number, the key to that night's grand prize. The clerk didn't ask any more questions and expertly punched the numbers into the machine. Soon, 50 identical tickets spooled out. I checked them carefully before tucking them safely into my wallet. Stepping out of the store, I looked up at the night sky. The city's neon glow painted it a hazy orange, obscuring the stars. But I knew that the stars meant to shine for me were, one by one, returning to their rightful orbits. I didn't go home right away. I found a 24-hour coffee shop nearby and sat down. I needed a quiet place to plan my next move. Revenge wasn't something you could rush, it required careful planning, precise execution, and enough capital. An hour later, at exactly 9 p.m., I refreshed the web page. On the official lottery site, the winning numbers popped up one after another in red. The first number matched. The second matched. The third matched too. When the final special number also matched my ticket perfectly, I leaned back in my chair and let out a long, slow breath. The grand prize was $10 million. 50 tickets meant $500 million. After taxes, that would be 400 million. I stared at the astronomical figure on my phone screen, but I felt no wild joy, just a calm sense of destiny. This was always mine. Now it had just been returned to its rightful owner. Meanwhile, Sarah was probably still dreaming somewhere about her $5 million windfall. Too bad for her. It was time to wake up. The next day was Monday. I got up early, went straight to the revenue office and the lottery commission, and handled all the paperwork to claim my prize. When the text notification from my bank arrived confirming the massive deposit, I just calmly deleted it. This money was my foundation, the seed capital for my revenge. The first thing I did was open an account at a brokerage firm. I remembered clearly that in my past life, after winning her $5 million, Sarah had taken Caleb's advice. He was already making a name for himself in finance, and invested most of it in a few obscure tech stocks. Not long after, the government announced a major new policy that sent those stocks soaring like rockets. They hit their trading limits for more than 10 days straight, and Sarah's investment multiplied nearly tenfold in just a month. That's how she earned the reputation of an investment genius, paving her way into high society. Thinking back, Caleb's advice was important, but the real key was the lucky star destiny she had stolen from me. I opened the trading app and found the familiar stock tickers. Their prices were still languishing at rock bottom, completely ignored by the market. Without a moment's hesitation, I invested every last cent of the $400 million. After I was done, I turned off my phone and walked out of the brokerage. The sun was warm and bright. I felt something new growing inside me, something called control. I got back to campus in the afternoon. My outburst at the party had made me infamous. Everywhere I went, I could feel people staring and whispering behind my back. Did you hear? Chloe and Sarah had a huge falling out. It's more than that. She totally humiliated Caleb in public. She's got some nerve. I think she's lost it. What is she without Sarah and Caleb? I ignored it all and went straight to my dorm. My 3 roommates were there. They all looked uncomfortable when they saw me. One of them, Wendy, who was closest to Sarah, shot me a look and said sarcastically, well, look who's back. Did our little princess have fun? Sarah's been worried sick about you. She called you 1,000,000 times, but you never picked up. I dropped my bag and ignored her. Another roommate, Jessica, tried to keep the peace. Come on, Wendy, lay off. Chloe must have her reasons. Wendy snorted. What reason could she have? She's just jealous that Sarah's more popular and has Caleb's attention. She acts all innocent, but she's a manipulative snake. You really can't judge a book by its cover. I turned my head and looked at Wendy, my gaze ice cold. Are you done? My eyes were so cold they could have frozen fire. Wendy seemed taken aback, but still stuck her chin out defiantly. What, am I wrong? You're not wrong, I said, and then I smiled. I am selfish, cold-hearted, and manipulative. So you should probably stay away from me, unless you want to get caught in one of my schemes and have nowhere to run crying. Wendy's face turned beet red. She probably never expected me to just admit it and turn it back on her. The atmosphere in the room dropped to freezing. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered it. Chloe, it's me. It was Sarah's voice, sounding weak and deliberately pitiful. Chloe, are you still mad at me? I'm so sorry, it was all my fault. I shouldn't have joked around like that at the party. Please don't ignore me, okay? I miss you. Listening to her phony act, I almost laughed out loud. This was her signature move. Always playing the innocent victim, making everyone else feel like they were in the wrong. What do you want? I asked coolly. My tone seemed to catch her off guard. She paused before continuing in that fragile voice. My dad's company is in some trouble. The cash flow is really tight. Caleb said there are a few tech stocks with huge potential, but my family just can't spare the money right now. Chloe, you just had your birthday and got a lot of gift money, right? Could you lend me $500,000? As soon as I make a profit, I'll pay you back. Double. There it was. She was finally showing her true colors. In my last life, she used the same excuse to trick me out of my entire savings. And of course that loan was never repaid. I could almost picture her expression, biting her lip, eyes welling with tears, looking like the world had wronged her. She was certain I wouldn't dare refuse her, certain that no matter how angry I was, I would eventually soften up, just like always. Too bad for her. She was wrong again. No, I said, spitting out the single word. The other end of the line went dead silent. I could hear Sarah's breathing quicken. She couldn't seem to believe her ears. What did you say? I said no. I repeated, emphasizing each syllable. Sarah, your dad's company isn't having cash flow problems. It's about to go bankrupt. I suggest you save that money to plan your own future. With that, I hung up and blocked the number. My words were like a bomb, detonating in Sarah's world. For the rest of the day, my phone was blowing up. There were furious calls from Sarah using different numbers, scolding calls from my clueless mother, and even a condescending text from Caleb. Chloe, I know you're still upset, but what's happening with Sarah's family is serious. Kicking them when they're down is just cruel. I stared at the text and scoffed. Cruel? In my last life, when I was on my deathbed and couldn't even afford my medical bills, Sarah used my money to buy the biggest penthouse in the city, and Caleb praised her investment savvy. They didn't think that was cruel? I blocked all their numbers and messages. Finally, peace and quiet. I needed to focus all my energy on something more important. The Starlight Cup, the National Collegiate Design Competition, was one of the most prestigious contests in the country. In my past life, Sarah won the gold medal with this competition, which became her ticket into Aurelius, a top-tier design firm. Her winning piece, titled Genesis, was entirely plagiarized, the inspiration and core design stolen from one of my class assignments. She had just made a few commercial tweaks to my raw but inspired design and passed it off as her own masterpiece. At the time, I was naive enough to be happy for her, thinking her success was partly mine. I even helped her finish the technical drawings when she was too busy. It was laughable to think about it now. I opened my computer and pulled up that long-forgotten assignment. Looking at the familiar lines and concepts on the screen, a cold smile touched my lips. So Sarah, you like to plagiarize? Let me show you what a real original looks like. I scrapped my original design and started over from a completely new perspective. I poured everything I had into the new piece. The 10 years of experience I gained struggling at the bottom of Aurelius in my past life, and the broader vision I had now, reborn. This was no longer a simple student project. It was a work of art destined to shake the entire design world. For a whole week, I practically lived in the library and the art studio, forgetting to eat or sleep. When I put the final stroke on the design, the sky outside was already turning gray with dawn. I looked at the new design, which I had named Phoenix, and smiled with satisfaction. This piece was at least 10 times more stunning than Sarah's Genesis. The gold medal was mine. The day after I submitted my entry, news I had been expecting arrived. Sarah's father, chairman of the well-known fashion company Yinyu Group, was under investigation for massive tax evasion. All of the company's assets were frozen. The news sent shockwaves through the business world. Overnight, the Su family fell from grace. I opened my phone and saw the business news alert. I felt nothing but calm. In my last life, this happened 6 months later. The whistleblower was Caleb's father, chairman of the Sterling Corporation. To distance themselves from the Su family and swallow their market share, the Sterlings didn't hesitate to deliver the fatal blow. It was also around that time that Sarah latched onto me for good, sucking me dry like a leech. This time, I had simply mailed a more complete and detailed set of evidence to the IRS anonymously. All I did was move up the day of judgment. Sarah, your good days are over. The school was in an uproar. The same classmates who had been defending Sarah and calling me cold-hearted just a day before immediately changed their tune. Oh my God! Sarah's family were tax evaders. You really can't judge a book by its cover. No wonder Chloe wouldn't lend her money. She must have known all along. I knew it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. In the dorm, Wendy didn't dare to make snide remarks anymore. She would even lower her head and walk the other way when she saw me. This is reality. When you're weak, the world's malice comes for you. When you suddenly become strong, or when your enemies fall, the world smiles upon you. I paid no attention to the noise. My life remained quiet. I attended classes during the day and worked on perfecting the details of my competition entry at night. Occasionally, I checked my stocks. Those few tech shares had started a steady climb, and my net worth was growing at an astonishing rate. A few days later, I received a call from the Starlight Cup committee. My design, Phoenix, had passed the preliminary review with flying colors, earning high praise from the judges and advancing directly to the final round. As for Sarah, her plagiarized Genesis was deemed unoriginal and didn't even make it past the first cut. I hung up the phone in a great mood and decided to treat myself at a new dessert shop near campus. The moment I walked in, I saw someone I didn't want to see. Sarah. She was sitting by the window. In just a few short days, she had withered like a frostbitten flower. Her face was pale, her eyes were sunken, and the designer dress she wore looked old and wrinkled. She clearly saw me too. Our eyes met, and the hatred in hers was so intense it felt like it could physically pierce me. She shot up from her seat, rushed over and demanded sharply, "Chloe, was it you? Did you report my dad?" I watched her lose control, calmly picked up a slice of tiramisu, and elegantly cut a small piece with my fork. The sweet cream melted on my tongue, and I closed my eyes in satisfaction. "Sarah, you need evidence to make accusations like that. Without proof, it's just slander," I said calmly. "Stop pretending." My calmness infuriated her. She lunged at me like a madwoman, trying to grab my hair. "It had to be you. You cursed my dad on the phone. You evil witch, you ruined my family. I'll kill you." I easily sidestepped her attack. She stumbled forward, nearly falling flat on her face. Just then, a familiar, cold voice came from the doorway. "Have you made enough of a scene?" It was Caleb. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his hair perfectly styled, but his handsome face was etched with disappointment and impatience. He didn't even look at me. He walked straight to Sarah, helping her up as she struggled. "Sarah, don't be like this," he said with a frown. "You're making a fool of yourself." Sarah fought against his hold, crying, "Caleb, it was her. Chloe ruined my family. Help me. You have to help me get revenge." Caleb patted her back soothingly, then finally looked at me with a complicated expression. "Chloe, did you really have something to do with this?" I watched them play out this tragic hero saves the damsel scene, and suddenly found it hilarious. "Caleb," I said, putting down my fork and meeting his gaze. "Are you questioning me? On what grounds?" "On the grounds that you're holding another woman while you interrogate me." Caleb's face stiffened. He probably realized how awkward his position was. "That's not what I meant." "Then what do you mean?" I pressed on. "Are you here as Sarah's friend or as my former suitor? In case you've forgotten, we have no relationship whatsoever." Caleb was speechless. In his arms, Sarah was still wailing. "Caleb, help me. My dad can't go to jail. My family can't be destroyed." A flash of annoyance crossed Caleb's face, but he still said gently, "Don't worry. I'll figure something out." "Figure something out?" I laughed. "Caleb, you should probably figure out how to explain this to your own father first. Your dad hates doing business with families who have shady backgrounds. Now that the Sioux are in this much trouble, do you really think he'll let your family help them?" My words were a dagger that hit him right where it hurt. The color drained from his face instantly. Caleb left with a distraught Sarah, and the dessert shop returned to its quiet state. The other customers looked at me with a newfound sense of awe and curiosity. I ignored them, finished my tiramisu at a leisurely pace, paid the bill and left. Soon after, the Sterling family issued a statement announcing the termination of all business partnerships with the Yinyu Group and strongly condemned the Sioux family's illegal activities. This statement was the final straw that broke the camel's back. The Sioux family was finished. Caleb also posted publicly that he and Sarah were just ordinary friends, and hoped everyone would stop speculating. How pathetic. One minute he was playing the hero in a dessert shop, the next he was demoting her to a mere friend. A man's words are lies. How true. Sarah had a complete breakdown. She stopped coming to class, and I heard she locked herself in her house, refusing to see anyone. The campus gossip about her gradually died down, replaced by new legends about me. The once quiet and unremarkable Chloe had, overnight, become mysterious and powerful. Some said I had a secret mentor. Others that I was the hidden heiress of a wealthy family. The theories were endless, but no one guessed the truth. And then my moment arrived. The winners of the Starlight Cup were officially announced. My design, Phoenix, won the gold medal without any suspense. This news was even more shocking to my classmates than the Sue family's bankruptcy. In their eyes, I had always been an average student with zero presence. Now, I had won the highest honor in a national design competition. The stark contrast left everyone stunned. My academic advisor called me personally, his voice filled with excitement and pride. He said the university was going to hold a celebration for me and hang my photo on the wall of honor. Walking through campus, I could feel the gazes on me shift from disdain and dismissal to curiosity and awe. This is reality. When you are strong enough, the whole world smiles at you. After winning the award, several top design firms extended offers to me, including Aurelius, the firm Sarah had joined in my past life and the #1 in the industry. The HR director from Aurelius personally called me and offered a package that any graduate would kill for. But I refused. My life would not repeat any part of my past. I was going to create a future that was entirely my own. With the money I earned from my stocks, I rented an entire floor in the most prestigious office building in the city and registered my own design studio. I named it Phoenix. While I was busy with the studio's launch, I got a call that was both expected and unexpected. It was from my clueless mother. The moment I answered, her anxious, tearful voice came through. "Chloe, you have to come home now. It's Sarah. She tried to kill herself. She cut her wrists." I held the phone in silence. The same old trick. In my past life, after I refused to lend her money, she used the same method to guilt me into submission. I not only gave her all my money but, out of guilt, treated her even better, ultimately letting a wolf into my home. Is she at the hospital? Did they save her? Is she out of danger? I asked calmly. My mother was taken aback. She probably didn't expect me to be so calm, without a hint of worry. Yes, they saved her, but the doctor said she's very unstable. She won't see anyone. She only wants to see you. Chloe, I'm begging you, please go see her. Her family has been through so much, and now this, she's just so pitiful. Mom, I interrupted. Just because she's pitiful, does that mean I have to pay for it? Her dad's tax evasion was his own doing. Her own mental fragility and suicide attempt are her choices. What does any of that have to do with me? How can you say that? My mother's voice shot up, full of disappointment and accusation. She's your friend, you grew up together. How can you be so cold-hearted? Do you have any idea what people are saying about our family? That we raised a thankless traitor. You're embarrassing me. Always about appearances. In her world, what other people thought was always more important than her own daughter's feelings. I took a deep breath, a tightness in my chest from 30 years of pent-up frustration and disappointment from my past life. Mom, I'm not going, I said, each word clear and firm. If you think I've embarrassed you, then from this day on, I'm no longer your daughter. You can adopt whoever you want. Sarah wants to see me? You tell her to give up hope and never bother me again. With that, I hung up. I knew my mom would be furious, maybe even disown me, but I didn't regret it. I needed time for her and everyone else to get used to the new Chloe, one who wouldn't be manipulated by family or guilt, one who lived only for herself. After dealing with my mother, I thought I could finally have some peace. But the next morning, my studio had an unwelcome visitor. Caleb. He was standing at my office door holding a large bouquet of white roses, his face a mixture of emotions I couldn't decipher. Chloe, he said, walking in and placing the flowers on my desk. His voice was gentle. Congratulations on your award and on opening your studio. I leaned back in my executive chair, looking at his lovesick act with amusement. Can I help you, Caleb? I'm very busy here and I don't have time for visitors. I made it clear he wasn't welcome. Caleb's face tightened, but he seemed unusually patient today. Chloe, can we talk? I know you might have some misunderstandings about Sarah and me. Misunderstandings? I raised an eyebrow. Things I saw with my own eyes are misunderstandings? It's not like that, he explained eagerly. I only care about Sarah as a friend, and I feel sorry for her. With what happened to her family, it's just too much for a girl to handle alone. Chloe, you've always been the kindest person I know. Could you, for my sake, go see her at the hospital? She really wants to see you. I looked at him and suddenly laughed. Caleb, are you begging me? He froze, clearly not expecting that question. If you're begging, shouldn't you be a little more sincere? I stood up, walked over to him, and looked down at him. For instance, maybe you should get on your knees? Caleb's face turned crimson. His pride and ego would never allow him to do such a thing. Chloe, don't push it, he said through gritted teeth. Push it. I sneered. Caleb, drop the righteous act. You think I don't know that you're the one who gave your father the evidence against Sarah's family? You couldn't distance yourself from her fast enough, and now you're here playing the devoted saint? Are you here begging for Sarah? Or are you just trying to patch up the cracks in your own perfect persona? The blood drained from Caleb's face. He probably never imagined I knew so much. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I shook his hand off me and warned him coldly, don't ever bother me again. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind telling Sarah all about this. With that, I walked to the door and pulled it open. Get out. Caleb fled in humiliation. He had probably never been so disgraced in his life. The venomous look he shot me as he left felt like it could burn a hole through my back. I didn't care. With selfish people like him, the only way to make them truly stay away is to make them fear you. In the days that followed, I threw myself into preparing my studio. Hiring staff, buying equipment, contacting clients, everything proceeded in an orderly fashion. My $400 million investment also started showing incredible returns. Spurred by the new government policy, those tech stocks began to soar, hitting their trading limits almost daily. My assets snowballed. With that money, I not only equipped my studio with the best technology in the country, but also poached several well-known designers in the industry. Phoenix Studio was already making waves in the design world before it even officially opened. Just as I was swamped with work, I received an unexpected call. A gentle, refined male voice was on the other end. May I speak to Ms. Chloe Jiang? I am the assistant to Chairman Charles Sterling. Our chairman saw your award-winning work, Phoenix, at the Starlight Cup Judges Banquet, and was very impressed. He would like to invite you to a private charity gala at the Sterling estate this weekend. Charles Sterling? Hearing that name, my hand tightened around the phone. I knew that name well. Charles Sterling, a legend in the business world, the head of the Sterling Group. He was a private man, rarely seen in public, but his business empire spanned the globe, his influence unmatched. In my past life, after Sarah made a name for herself with the Starlight Cup, she met this business titan at a gala. She was thrilled to discover that Mr. Sterling was actually a long-lost distant relative of my family, my maternal grandfather's cousin. The two families had lost contact due to some family turmoil years ago. Sarah used this connection to win Charles Sterling's favor, and he provided her with immense business support. She even started telling people she was his god-granddaughter. In my past life, I died without ever knowing I had such a powerful relative. This time, I had intercepted her design award, and it seemed this massive opportunity had come to me ahead of schedule. A small smile played on my lips. Of course, I would be honored. After hanging up, I immediately started preparing for the gala. Unlike Sarah in my past life, I didn't rent an expensive gown and jewelry to create a glamorous facade. I simply went to a department store and chose a simple but elegant white long dress. Then I found something in my mom's jewelry box. The only thing my grandmother had left behind, a simple antique jade brooch. The carving wasn't particularly fine, but it bore a very distinct family crest. I remembered that in my past life, Sarah had stumbled upon this crest in an old family photo and used it to track down Charles Sterling. I knew he would recognize it. That weekend, I arrived at the Sterling estate as planned. It was a vast, traditional garden estate, with pavilions, small bridges over flowing streams, and picturesque views at every turn, a masterpiece of understated luxury. The guests were all wealthy and influential, the kind of people you only see in business magazines. I immediately spotted Charles Sterling, the center of attention. He looked younger than I expected, around 60, full of vigor, with a striking resemblance to the grandfather in my old photos. I took a deep breath, picked up a glass of juice, and walked toward him. Just as I was about to reach him, an unwelcome guest blocked my path. It was Caleb. He looked a bit haggard, but he was still impeccably dressed. He looked at me, his eyes a tangled mess of emotions. Chloe, can we talk? I have nothing to talk to you about. I tried to walk around him, but he grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it felt like he could crush my bones. Chloe, do you have to be so heartless? He whispered, a hint of pleading in his eyes. The Sue family is ruined, and Sarah has been punished. Aren't you satisfied? Do you have any idea how miserable she is now? Her landlord kicked her out. She's living in a cheap basement, working odd jobs to survive. I stopped and looked back at him, finding the whole thing ridiculous. Her misery is her own doing. What does it have to do with me? I cut him off coldly. And Caleb dropped the saintly act. Who was it that, in order to save his own skin, personally handed his future father-in-law over to the authorities? Now you're here pretending to be some tragic hero? It's disgusting. The color drained from Caleb's face. I yanked my hand away, not wasting another breath on him, and walked straight toward Charles Sterling. I didn't notice that in a dim corner of the ballroom, a pair of venomous eyes was fixed on me. Sarah. She was here. She was wearing a server's uniform, her face heavily made up, but it couldn't hide her haggardness and resentment. She was like a viper lurking in the shadows, flicking its tongue, waiting to strike. I had no idea how she got into an event like this, but I knew she was also here for Charles Sterling. She was probably trying to reenact her past life script, staging a coincidental meeting with him to play out a grand family reunion. Too bad for her. She was a step too late again. I ignored her. She was no threat to me now. I walked up to Charles Sterling and smiled slightly. Grandpa Charles, it's a pleasure to meet you. I didn't call him Mr. Sterling, like everyone else, opting for a more familiar title. Charles Sterling was chatting with some guests. He turned at the sound of my voice. When he saw me, he froze, his eyes immediately locking onto the jade brooch on my chest. That brooch, he began, his voice trembling with emotion. I smiled and took something else from my purse, a faded old photograph. It showed my young grandfather and grandmother with my mother as a little girl. My name is Chloe Jiang. My grandfather was Jackson Jiang. Charles Sterling looked at the photo, then back at me, his eyes instantly turning red. The resemblance is uncanny, he said, his voice choked. He gripped my hand tightly. You and your mother, you look exactly like your grandmother when she was young. My dear child, you've suffered all these years. The surrounding guests were stunned. They couldn't fathom how a little-known young woman could have a connection to the chairman of the Sterling Group. My reunion with Charles Sterling quickly became the center of the gala. I could feel countless curious gazes on me, the most intense and malicious coming from Sarah in the corner. I could almost picture her gritting her teeth, nails digging into her palms. The golden opportunity that should have been hers had been snatched away by me again. After the gala, Charles insisted on driving me home personally. In the back of the extended Rolls-Royce, he told me stories of the past, about the history of the Jiang and Sterling families, about my grandparents' youth. He also asked in detail about my life over the years. When he learned about my mother's situation and my father's early death, he sighed heavily, his eyes filled with sympathy and regret. It's all my fault. He patted my hand, his voice hoarse. If I had been more persistent back then and found you and your mother sooner, she wouldn't have had to marry such an ordinary man and endure so much. But don't worry. From now on, Grandpa Charles is here. No one will ever dare to bully you again. He handed me a black card. Child, take this. No pin, no limit. If your studio needs anything, just ask. Grandpa will invest in it. I didn't refuse. This wasn't charity, it was the emotional compensation I deserved. When I got home, my mom was still awake. She was speechless when she saw me pull up in a luxury car she couldn't even name. When I told her about Charles Sterling, she was completely dumbfounded. She held the old photo and the jade brooch and cried all night, releasing a lifetime of pent-up sorrow and longing. The next day, Charles sent over countless expensive gifts that nearly filled our small living room. He also personally called my mom and invited our whole family to the Sterling estate for dinner. My mom was so excited she couldn't sleep a wink. With Charles's arrival, our family was suddenly catapulted from an ordinary household into high society. And I went from being a regular college student to the de facto heir of the Sterling Group. It all happened so fast, it felt like a dream. But I knew it wasn't. This was a crucial step I had taken, one by one, to reclaim my life from Sarah. With a huge investment from Charles, my Phoenix studio launched with great fanfare. The opening ceremony was a star-studded event, filled with business leaders and media, overshadowing every other commercial event that day. I stood on stage in a custom-tailored white suit, accepting congratulations and basking in the flash of cameras. I saw Caleb in the crowd. He stood in an inconspicuous corner, watching me silently, his eyes filled with regret, unwillingness, and a complex emotion I couldn't read. I ignored him. My attention was on something else entirely. Just when I thought Sarah would fade into obscurity, she did something I never expected. She found the same mystic who had enlightened me in my past life. I saw it in photos sent by my private investigator. In the pictures, Sarah was kneeling at the entrance of a dilapidated temple, looking haggard but with a crazed determination in her eyes. The mystic stood before her, his expression unreadable. My heart sank. I knew Sarah was getting desperate. She was going to try the same trick again. She wanted to swap our fates one more time. My PI told me Sarah had given the mystic a large sum of money, her last savings. In return, he gave her a small pouch. The PI couldn't find out what was inside, but I could guess. It was a plan to cause an accident, to injure me so I'd need a blood transfusion. Then she would appear like a savior with her rare blood type, and use it to claim my golden destiny. That's how she stole everything from me in our past life. I sneered. Sarah, do you really think I'd give you that chance again? I had the PI follow Sarah 24/7. I needed to know her every move. At the same time, I started preparing a grand gift of my own. A few days later, the PI sent a message. Target has been frequently meeting with a truck driver. She's also been scouting the area around your studio, mapping your daily commute. I suspect she's planning a car crash. It was the exact same method she used to frame me in my past life. Except this time, she was the target. Understood, I replied. Keep watching her, and send me the truck driver's file. I looked at the picture of Sarah's face, twisted with hatred, on my phone. I felt no fear, only a thrilling anticipation for the show that was about to begin. Sarah, have you prepared your own coffin? Sarah chose the day of my studio's grand opening to make her move. She probably thought that would be the peak of my success, and dragging me down from the clouds and shattering me to pieces would be the only way to satisfy her hatred. Her timing was perfect. Unfortunately for her, she miscalculated one thing. The Chloe of today was no longer the sacrificial lamb she once was. The opening ceremony was incredibly grand. Charles Sterling himself came to cut the ribbon, bringing along numerous business elites and media, giving me an immense amount of prestige. Dressed in a sharp white suit, I stood on stage, confidently discussing my design philosophy and the future of my studio. I was poised, radiant, and utterly in my element, as if I were born for this stage. The camera flashes below were a sea of stars. I saw Caleb standing at the very back of the crowd, gazing at me, his eyes filled with regret. He had probably finally realized what a gem he had thrown away. Too bad there are no second chances in life. My attention was entirely on my phone. The private investigator was sending me real-time updates through a secure channel. Target vehicle is in position on your usual route home. Driver has received the signal and is ready to move. Sarah is disguised as a nurse and has boarded an ambulance parked nearby. I read the messages, a smile spreading across my face. It was all playing out exactly like the script from my last life. After the ceremony, I politely declined Charles's offer to drive me home. Grandpa, I had a little to drink, so I called a driver. You go ahead. I just have a few things to wrap up here. Charles suspected nothing. He just told me to be safe and left. I watched his car drive away, then dialed another number. It's time. I didn't get into my own white Porsche. I had my assistant, a girl of similar build, change into an identical white suit I had prepared. She drove my car and left conspicuously through the front entrance. I, on the other hand, slipped out the back door and got into an unremarkable sedan that was waiting for me. My Porsche followed my usual route home. Inside, my assistant was live streaming, and I was the only viewer. As the car approached an intersection, chaos erupted. A massive, Out-of-control truck barreled out from a side street like a caged beast set free. It didn't slow down, in fact. It accelerated, ramming straight into the white Porsche. There was a deafening crash. My car was sent flying several meters, rolling over twice before coming to a stop, its body mangled, glass shattered everywhere. The live feed shook violently before cutting to black. I watched my phone screen, my face a blank mask. Almost instantly, an ambulance, sirens wailing, arrived at the scene as if it had known what was coming. The first person to jump out was Sarah, dressed as a nurse, a frantic yet strangely triumphant smile on her face. She rushed to the crumpled driver's side, trying to yank the door open. Chloe, are you okay?" she cried, her performance utterly convincing. Just then, another set of cars quietly pulled up from the other direction. These were reporters I had hired, their cameras ready. They captured Sarah's heartfelt performance from every angle. The firefighters arrived quickly and used the jaws of life to cut the door open. When they pulled me, my assistant, out of the car, the expression on Sarah's face froze. It wasn't me. Though the assistant was covered in blood, it was still clear she wasn't Chloe. How could? Sarah was stunned. She couldn't figure out why I wasn't in the car. Her entire plan was in disarray. In that moment of distraction, the truck that was supposed to have finished its job suddenly lurched forward again. The driver must have panicked and hit the gas instead of the brake. The truck charged toward the crowd like a mad bull. People screamed and scattered. Only Sarah remained frozen in place, unable to get out of the way in time. The truck's wheels rolled directly over her legs. A blood-curdling scream tore through the night. Sitting in my car, I watched it all unfold through the reporter's cameras, my expression cold. She was reaping what she sowed. This was the perfect description of her fate. But I didn't leave just yet. The main event was just beginning. I took out my phone and posted a long, pre-written article online, along with all the evidence I had gathered. The title was, "The Star of Fortune and the Star of Calamity, the Decade My Best Friend and I Swapped Fates." My post was a bombshell that set the internet ablaze. Fate swapping, best friend betrayal, mysticism, stolen luck, attempted murder, every keyword was pure catnip for netizens. It shot to the top of the trending charts. I detailed everything that had happened between Sarah and me, from the wishing fountain at my 18th birthday party 12 years ago to my tragic death in my past life, from my calculated moves after my rebirth to Sarah's relentless schemes. I posted my past life medical records, which clearly stated my unexplained organ failure. I posted the complete evidence of her father's tax evasion, proving I wasn't kicking them when they were down, but that I already knew the truth. I posted photos of her meeting with the mystic, and a recording of his confession about her second attempt to swap our fates. I posted her chat logs and transaction records with the truck driver, proving she orchestrated the car crash. Finally, I uploaded the full, unedited video of tonight's accident, showing how Sarah just happened to be there, how she put on her sincere act, and how she ultimately became the victim of her own plot, her legs crushed under the truck. The evidence formed a perfect, unbreakable chain. The facts were irrefutable. The internet exploded. Public opinion flipped in an instant. The same people who had pitted Sarah and called me heartless were now completely stunned. Holy SD. This is the drama of the year. You couldn't even write a story this crazy. My God. Sarah is pure evil. This is a real-life snake in the grass. I feel so bad for Chloe. Her past life was horrible. Thank God she was reborn. Serves her right. This is karma for Sarah. Broken legs are getting off easy. Team Chloe all the way. You can't show mercy to people like that. Overnight, Sarah went from a tragic victim to a villain everyone loved to hate. She was taken to the hospital, where doctors confirmed both her legs were crushed. She would be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her life. At the same time, the police launched an investigation. The truck driver quickly confessed that Sarah had paid him to cause the accident. With witnesses and evidence, Sarah didn't even have a chance to defend herself. A long prison sentence awaited her. Upon seeing the news, both the Sterling and Sterling families immediately cut all ties. Charles Sterling held a press conference, stating that while he sympathized with Sarah's situation, his family would not tolerate any criminal behavior and supported a fair police investigation. Caleb's father personally called me to apologize, saying he had failed as a father and almost gotten me killed. He promised the Sterling family would never have anything to do with Sarah again. As for Caleb, he sent me a flood of messages. "Chloe, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was so insane. I was wrong. Please give me another chance. Let's start over. Chloe, you're the only one I've ever loved. I was blind before, fooled by Sarah. Chloe, if you'll have me, I'll fight my family, I'll do anything for you." Reading his texts, I felt sick. I replied with one last message. "Let me ask you something. If I hadn't avoided the crash today, if I had really died, would you have shed a single tear for me? Or would you and Sarah have celebrated getting rid of your biggest problem?" After sending it, I blocked him on everything. That man had only ever loved himself. His apologies and attempts to win me back were only because I now had the Sterling Group behind me and could offer him far more than he ever imagined. I would never give him another chance to hurt me. Everything was finally settled. Sarah would spend the rest of her life in prison and a wheelchair, stripped of the beauty, wealth, and love she had craved. And I had taken back everything that was mine. My Phoenix studio, fueled by the massive publicity from the scandal, became an overnight success. Orders poured in. Charles Sterling invested another $1 billion to help me expand the brand. My good fortune exploded. My investments yielded incredible returns, my designs won international awards, and my life felt like it was on cheat mode. I knew this was the true power of my golden destiny, finally free from the curse that had plagued it. The media storm lasted a full week before finally calming down. In its wake, Sarah was nailed to a pillar of shame for the world to see, never to recover. And I, Chloe Jiang, became synonymous with independence, intelligence, and strength, earning the support and admiration of countless people. My studio's reputation soared, and major brands that I could only have dreamed of working with before were now lining up to collaborate. Charles Sterling was immensely proud of me. He said more than once in public that I was the greatest achievement of his life. He even began the process of transferring some of the Sterling Group's subsidiary businesses to my control. My life was ascending at an unprecedented speed. Just when I thought everything was finally on track, my clueless mother created new trouble for me. She actually agreed to an exclusive interview. In it, she tearfully accused me of being ungrateful, claiming that after becoming famous, I had disowned my family, refused to come home, and even blocked all her contact numbers. She also said my revenge against Sarah was too cruel, that we were childhood friends and I shouldn't have been so ruthless. Chloe was always such a kind-hearted child. This fame and fortune has gone to her head. As her mother, it's my duty to bring her back to the right path, she declared righteously on camera. The interview caused another uproar. While most people were still on my side, calling my mother out for emotional blackmail, a faction of bleeding hearts started criticizing me for being cold and heartless. "She's still your mother. How can you treat her like that?" Sarah got what she deserved, but Chloe's methods were a bit too harsh. "I think her mom has a point. It's easy for young people to lose their way when they become successful." Reading those comments, I felt a chill. I didn't respond immediately. I knew that with someone like my mother, explanations were useless. Only by experiencing it herself would she understand just how cold-blooded the snake she pitted really was. I had my PI investigate the media company that interviewed her. Unsurprisingly, the company was partially owned by the Sterling family. It was Caleb. The persistent pest was still trying to use public opinion to pressure me. I sneered and sent him a little gift. I anonymously sent a recording to the Sterling Group's biggest rival. It was a recording from my past life, where Caleb, trying to impress the fate-swapped Sarah, had laughingly told us about some of his family's shady business dealings. At the same time, I had my PI leak my mother's recent whereabouts to the creditors who had been ruined by the Sue family's bankruptcy. 2 days later, 2 stories broke at the same time. One was that the Sterling Group was under investigation for unfair business practices, causing their stock to plummet. The other was that my mother had been cornered by a group of angry creditors while she was out grocery shopping. They mistakenly thought she was still connected to the Sue family and took all their anger out on her. She was pushed to the ground, injured, and robbed of all her valuables. She called me for help, bruised and terrified. I was in my new office, enjoying my afternoon tea. "Chloe, help me. They're going to kill me," she sobbed hysterically into the phone. I listened calmly, saying nothing. "Chloe, why aren't you saying anything? Are you still mad at me? I was wrong. I'll never pressure you again. Just please come save me." "Address," I said coolly. I called the police and an ambulance, then leisurely made my way to the scene. The police had the situation under control, and my mother was being lifted onto a stretcher. She saw me and looked as if she'd seen her savior, struggling to grab my hand. "Chloe, you're finally here." I was so scared. I looked at her face, red, swollen, and covered in scratches, and felt nothing. "Mom," I said calmly, "do you still think Sarah is pitiful? Do you still think I was too cruel to her?" Her crying stopped abruptly. She stared at me, her eyes filled with shock and confusion. I continued, "The people who attacked you today had their money stolen by the Sue family. Some of them lost their companies, some lost their families. Do you think they're pitiful? And you, just because of your ridiculous sympathy, became their target. Do you still think your kindness is so noble now?" My mother opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. Kindness isn't wrong, but kindness without a backbone is just stupidity. It won't just hurt you, it will become a weapon for others to use against you. I told her, word by word, "This is the last lesson I'm going to teach you. From now on, you're on your own." With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. After that, my mother never bothered me again. It seemed she finally understood something. She quietly moved back to our old house in the countryside and lived a reclusive life. And Caleb, with his family's company in crisis, was too busy to harass me anymore. My world was finally quiet. With all the external distractions gone, my life shifted into high gear. Under my leadership, Phoenix Studio produced one masterpiece after another, quickly establishing itself in the design world both at home and abroad. My work was not only commercially successful but also artistically acclaimed, winning me countless awards. Charles Sterling also kept his promise, gradually handing over the core businesses of the Sterling Group to me. I transformed from a simple designer into a mature business leader. My days were packed with meetings, financial reports, and strategic decisions. It was exhausting but more fulfilling than anything I had ever known. I could feel myself growing stronger, strong enough to control my own destiny, no longer at the mercy of anyone. Just when I thought the name Sarah would disappear from my life forever, she reappeared in a way I never could have imagined. One day, I was attending an international business forum. During a break, a woman in a hotel server's uniform walked straight toward me with a cup of coffee. As she passed me, she suddenly tripped and fell toward me. I instinctively dodged. The scalding coffee splashed all over the wall behind me, sizzling and steaming. The server fell heavily to the floor. Gasps erupted from the crowd, and my bodyguards immediately subdued the woman. When she looked up, I saw the familiar face, twisted with hatred and jealousy. It was Sarah. She had escaped from the mental hospital. Her eyes were like a viper's, fixed on me, but a strange smile played on her lips. "Chloe, long time no see." Her voice was as raspy as sandpaper. My heart sank, and a wave of intense unease washed over me. This was about more than just a cup of coffee. "Call the police. Search her." I ordered my bodyguards. They twisted her arms behind her back and pulled something from her uniform pocket. A syringe filled with a clear liquid. The guests around us gasped. My face went pale. I recognized that liquid. In my past life, in my final days, doctors had given me high-concentration painkillers just like that to ease my suffering. An overdose would cause respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. She was trying to kill me. The police arrived quickly and took Sarah away. I stood there, watching her crazed, triumphant expression as she was pushed into the police car, a chill running down my spine. I had thought the law and prison were the ultimate punishment for her. I was wrong. For someone who had already lost their mind, the law meant nothing. The only thing she wanted was to drag me to hell with her. She failed this time, but what about the next? I didn't dare to think about it. That night, I was plagued by nightmares. I was back in that cold hospital room from my past life, swallowed by darkness and pain, with Sarah's laughter echoing in my ears. The next morning, I woke up from the nightmare and made a decision. Instead of passively waiting for the next attack, I would go on the offensive. I would set a trap, an inescapable net for her and anyone who might be helping her. I would bring this two-lifetime feud to a definitive end. I contacted my private investigator and asked him to find out how Sarah had escaped from the high-security mental hospital. At the same time, I had my PR team release a statement. Phoenix Studio founder Chloe Jiang will host a private birthday party next Saturday in the rooftop sky garden of her studio. At the event, Sterling Group Chairman Charles Sterling will make an important announcement regarding the future succession of the Sterling Group. This was bait. I knew Sarah would come, and I would be there to prepare a grand welcome for her. The news sent shockwaves through the business world. Everyone knew this wasn't just a birthday party, it was a coronation. Charles Sterling was going to officially name me the sole heir to the Sterling Group. Invitations and requests poured in from everywhere. Everyone wanted to witness this historic moment. Meanwhile, I focused most of my energy on setting my trap. Under the guise of strengthening security, I had the entire studio building retrofitted. I installed high-definition hidden cameras in every corner, ensuring 360-degree coverage. I hired the country's top security team, who would be stationed undercover throughout the party. I also contacted the police, reporting a potential terrorist threat to request special security support. With everything in place, I waited for my prey to take the bait. The investigators' report came back quickly. Sarah had been taken from the mental hospital through unofficial channels. The person who helped her was Caleb. I looked at the surveillance screenshots the investigator sent, showing Caleb in the parking lot near the mental hospital late at night. I wasn't surprised. After the Sterling family went bankrupt, Caleb had fallen from a golden boy to a pathetic loser with nothing. He blamed me for all of it. He was probably planning to use Sarah as his pawn for one last, desperate gamble. How pathetic and laughable. They probably thought their plan was foolproof, never realizing that their every move was already under my control. The day of the birthday party finally arrived. The sky garden was decorated like a fairy tale wonderland, with crystal chandeliers, white roses, and the gentle melody of a string quartet. The guests were impeccably dressed, mingling and sipping champagne, a picture of high society glamour. I wore a stunning red gown, standing in the center of it all, accepting everyone's good wishes. Charles stood beside me, his face full of affection, looking at me as if I were a perfect work of art. I moved through the crowd gracefully, a glass of champagne in hand, but my eyes were constantly scanning the surroundings. At 8 p.m., the party reached its peak. Charles took the microphone and stepped onto the central stage. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate my granddaughter Chloe Jiang's birthday. His voice was strong and clear, carrying across the garden. Today, I would like to take this opportunity to announce an important decision. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the words that would shape the future of the nation's business landscape. Suddenly, chaos erupted. A commotion broke out at the garden entrance, and someone in a server's uniform burst through, running frantically. He was holding a dagger that glinted in the light, and he was charging straight for me on the stage. It was Sarah. The guests screamed in terror, and the scene descended into chaos. Security guards immediately moved to intercept him, but Sarah fought like a wild animal, with a strength that seemed inhuman. Several guards couldn't restrain him. He got closer and closer, 10 meters, 5'3". I could see the crazed suicidal determination in his eyes. Charles turned pale, and instinctively pulled me behind him. But I was perfectly calm. I watched him as if he were a buffoon. Just as the dagger was about to reach me, a massive electric net dropped from above, trapping him completely. A powerful current coursed through his body. He screamed, convulsed, and collapsed, the dagger clattering to the floor. Police officers who had been lying in wait swarmed in and took him into custody. The garden fell silent. Everyone stared, shaken, at the scene that looked like something out of a movie. I slowly stepped out from behind Charles. I walked to where Sarah lay on the ground and looked down at him. "Sarah," I said calmly, my voice amplified by the microphone, "you lose." Sarah lay on the ground, his body blackened from the shock, a crumpled heap. But his eyes were still fixed on me, filled with rage and resentment. Chloe, you'll die a horrible death, he spat out. I smiled. A horrible death? Sarah, I think you're talking about yourself. I turned to face the stunned guests and raised the microphone. Everyone, I apologize for the scare. I gave a slight bow, then straightened up, my voice suddenly cold and powerful. I know you all have many questions. Why was Sarah here? Why did he try to kill me? Now allow me to reveal the whole truth. The giant LED screen behind me lit up. The first thing that appeared was the surveillance footage from my 18th birthday party 12 years ago. In the video, Sarah, thinking no one was looking, quickly swapped the wishing charm in my hand for another one. Then she threw the one that should have been mine, the one that read, "A brilliant career," into the fountain. A murmur went through the crowd. What's happening? What is she switching? I didn't explain, just played the next piece of evidence. The mystic's confession appeared on the screen. He detailed how Sarah had sought him out, begging him to use dark arts to steal my good fortune. I warned her then that such an act went against the laws of nature and would surely backfire. But she was obsessed. If the video of the swap had confused the guests, the mystic's confession blew them away. Swapping fates? Oh my God! Is this real? That's beyond evil. I've never heard of anything so twisted. No wonder Chloe's life was so hard before. Someone stole her luck. The crowd's whispers washed over Sarah on the floor like a tidal wave. His face turned ashen. But that was just the beginning. Next, a series of evidence flashed across the screen. My past life medical records, with a specialist's conclusion of organ failure of unknown cause, possibly due to external, non-scientific factors, evidence of her father's tax evasion, and a recording of her instructing him on how to transfer assets overseas, the complete chat logs and transaction records of her hiring the truck driver, and surveillance footage of her escape from the mental hospital, her purchase of the dagger, and her secret meetings with Caleb to plot my assassination. Piece by piece, the evidence was irrefutable. The Sky Garden was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned into silence by this incredible saga of betrayal and murder that spanned 2 lifetimes. They looked at Sarah on the ground not with pity, but with fear and disgust. He was a monster. I looked at his face, twisted in despair, and knelt beside him. I whispered in his ear, so only he could hear, "Sarah, you want to know how I knew everything?" His pupils contracted. I leaned closer. Because I died once. You and Caleb killed me. I was reborn to take back everything I lost. Now my luck, my talent, my wealth, and my family have all returned to me. And you? Your family is ruined. Your reputation is in tatters, you have no one, and you'll spend the rest of your life in prison and a wheelchair. The wish you made for me to get what I deserved has come true for you. This is your karma. Sarah's eyes bulged. He looked at me as if I were a demon from hell. A strange gurgling sound came from his throat, and a spurt of blood shot from his mouth. Then his head lolled to the side, and he passed out. The police and paramedics took Sarah away. With the ironclad evidence against him, he was facing the harshest possible sentence. His fate was sealed, to live out the rest of his miserable life in prison. As for Caleb, his fate was no better. Once the surveillance footage from the party was released, he was identified as an accomplice in the assassination attempt, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. He tried to flee the country but was caught at the airport. At the time of his arrest, he was pale and his legs gave out. The police had to drag him away. He looked nothing like the proud golden boy he used to be. His family was disgraced, and the already struggling Sterling Group was hit with another scandal. Its stock price plummeted, and the company soon declared bankruptcy. The elaborate birthday party had ended in the most dramatic way possible. The next day, the headlines were all about the scandal. Shocking. Business tycoon Chloe Jiang is a reincarnator. The 2-lifetime feud with her best friend revealed. From golden destiny to cursed star, Sarah's theft of luck ends in tragedy. Sterling heir becomes a convict, dream of a dynasty in ruins. The internet buzzed with discussions about me, Sarah, and Caleb. I turned off my phone and took a long vacation. I went with Charles to my family's ancestral home, a beautiful old house in a water town in the south. My mother was there. She looked much older than the last time I saw her, with a lot more gray in her hair. When she saw me, she looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Charles looked at her and sighed, then gently pulled her into a hug. At that moment, a lifetime of pent-up grief finally burst forth, and she sobbed like a child in his arms. I stood by and watched silently. The ice around my heart, frozen for 2 lifetimes, seemed to begin to thaw. That evening, my mother cooked a meal of all my favorite childhood dishes. At the dinner table, she kept putting food on my plate, repeating over and over, "Chloe, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I didn't say it's okay or I forgive you." Some wounds can never be fully healed. I just quietly finished the meal. As I was leaving, I told her, "Mom, take care of yourself. I'll come back to visit often." Her eyes reddened again. I knew we could never go back to the way we were. But maybe this a respectful distance was the best we could hope for. With everything settled, my life finally got back on track. I officially took over the Sterling Group, becoming the youngest queen of this vast business empire. With my talent and skill, I led the company to new heights. The name Chloe Jiang became a legend of our time. I no longer needed to prove anything, no longer needed revenge, because I was already at the top of the world. A year later, I saw Sarah for the last time. Not in prison, but in a high-security psychiatric hospital. He had been sentenced to life for attempted murder, but shortly after being incarcerated, his mind snapped. He would ramble incoherently about demons coming to claim his soul, and was eventually transferred here. I watched him through a thick pane of bulletproof glass. He was wearing an oversized hospital gown, his head was shaved, and his face was covered in angry red scratches from his own nails. He was huddled in a corner, hugging his knees, his eyes vacant, muttering to himself, "My fate, my luck, give it back, give me back my life." He didn't recognize me. Or rather, his world had shrunk to those 2 words, swapped fates. The once vibrant and popular Sarah was now an unrecognizable madman. His fate was even more tragic than mine had been. In my past life, my body failed, but my mind was clear and my dignity was intact. He had lost even that. I watched him for a while, then turned and left. I felt no hatred, no satisfaction, just a quiet sense of peace. Outside the hospital, the sun was dazzlingly bright. Caleb was waiting by the gate. He had been released from prison. A few years behind bars seemed to have drained all the life from him. He wore cheap clothes, his hair was gray and his back was hunched. He looked older than Charles. He saw me, and a flicker of light appeared in his dull eyes. "Chloe," he said, his voice hoarse. I stopped and looked at him as if he were a stranger. "Yes." He seemed nervous, wringing his hands. I'm getting married next month." "Oh," I said flatly. "Congratulations." "She's a very ordinary girl," he explained hastily. "An arranged marriage. Chloe, my heart has always been with you." I looked at him and laughed. "Caleb, do you really think that means anything now? Who you love, who you marry, it has nothing to do with me. We were over a long time ago." "No, we're not." He took a step forward, trying to grab me. "Chloe, I know I was wrong. I regret everything. I regret not seeing Sarah for who she was. I regret not cherishing you. Give me one more chance, I swear." "You don't regret not cherishing me." I cut him off coldly. "You regret missing out on the heir to the Sterling Group, on all that unimaginable wealth." My words were a sharp knife, piercing through his false front once again. His face turned pale, and he was left speechless. "Take care of yourself." I ignored him and walked to my car. As the driver held the door for me, I glanced back at him one last time. "By the way, I forgot to tell you. The reason I knew you were the one who gave your father the evidence against Sarah's family was because you told me yourself, in our past life. When you thought I was about to die, you told us the story as a joke to impress the fate-swapped Sarah." With that, I got in the car and it sped away. I left Caleb standing there like a statue. I was sure that secret would haunt him for the rest of his life. The car drove smoothly down the road. I leaned back against the seat, watching the city fly by, my thoughts drifting. In the year since my rebirth, I had lived 2 lifetimes. I got my revenge and took back everything that was mine. My life was on a completely different trajectory. I became a famous designer, a successful businesswoman, and I had a loving family and immense wealth. I had become everything Sarah had been in my past life, and more. It all started with the choice I made at that wishing fountain on my 18th birthday. Fate gave me a chance to set things right. I took it, and I didn't waste it. The car pulled up to a hilltop villa overlooking the entire city. This was my new home. As I got out, I saw my mother and Charles in the garden, tending to the flowers. They saw me and smiled warmly. "Chloe's home. Come on. Grandpa Charles brought you your favorite pastries." In the sunlight, their smiles were brighter than gold. I walked over, linked arms with my mom, and smiled sweetly at Charles. "Thank you, Grandpa." This was my life now. Peaceful, warm, and full of love and hope. That night, I stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the sparkling city lights. My reflection stared back at me, young, healthy, and confident. My eyes held the stars. My destiny was a brilliant, unstoppable force. I was no longer the cursed Chloe who died in despair. I was the new Chloe, the master of my own fate, living a life that shone brightly. My life had just begun, and the future was full of infinite possibilities. Today is my 19th birthday. I went alone to the shore of a quiet lake. I smiled and tossed a coin into the clear water. Ripples spread across the surface like a gentle dream. I closed my eyes, clasped my hands together, and made a quiet wish for myself. This time, I wished for a life of sunshine and for everything to go my way.